The alarm rang through the space station like a warning bell. Lisa Harper ran down the metal hallway, her boots making loud sounds on the floor. She was the commander of Meridian 7, the farthest human outpost in known space. Nothing good ever happened when that alarm went off. "What do we have?" Lisa asked as she rushed into the control room. Danny Martinez, their doctor, was standing at one of the big screens. His face looked worried. "Unknown ship coming in fast," Danny said, pointing at the screen. "It's big, Lisa. Really big." Lisa looked at the screen. The ship was huge and dark, with sharp edges that looked like teeth. She had seen ships like this before in the military files. Her blood went cold. "That's a Zephyrian warship," she said quietly. Everyone in the room stopped what they were doing. The Zephyrians were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors. They conquered planets and destroyed anyone who got in their way. Most species ran when they saw Zephyrian ships coming. Katie Lewis, their engineer, looked up from her computer. "The ship is sending out signals," she said. "But they're not normal signals. Something is wrong with their engines." Lisa watched. The ship on the screen. It was moving in a strange way, like it was hurt. Smoke was coming from one side of it. "Are they asking for help?" Lisa asked. Katie nodded. "Yes, but it's hard to understand. Their communication system is damaged, too." Lisa felt everyone looking at her. She knew what they were thinking. Zephyrians were dangerous. They killed first and asked questions later. Every smart person in the galaxy stayed away from them. But Lisa had become a commander because she made hard choices. She looked at the damaged ship again. Inside that ship was someone who needed help. "Open a channel," she said. "Lisa, are you sure?" Danny asked. "These are Zephyrians. They could kill us all." "Maybe," Lisa said. "But they're also hurt and far from home. Open the channel." Katie pressed some buttons. A crackling sound came from the speakers. "This is Commander Lisa Harper of Human Station Meridian 7, Lisa said into the microphone. "We see that your ship is damaged. Do you need help?" For a long time, there was only static. Then a voice came through. It was deep and rough, but Lisa could hear pain in it. "Human Station. This is Kethara Voss of the Zephyrian Empire. My ship is dying. I am dying." The voice was clearly female, but it sounded strong even when hurt. Lisa looked around the room. Her crew was scared, but they were also good people. "Kethara Voss, this is Lisa Harper. We can help you. Do you give permission for us to bring your ship into our docking bay?" Another long pause. Then the voice came. Back. Weaker this time. "You would help a Zephyrian?" "We would help anyone who needs it," Lisa said. She heard something that sounded like a laugh, but not a happy one. "Your species is strange, human Lisa Harper." "Yes, I give permission. But know this. If I live, I am bound by honor to report your location to my empire." Lisa felt her crew looking at her with wide eyes. By helping this Zephyrian, they might be putting Earth itself in danger. But Lisa had made her choice. "Understood," she said. "Katie, bring them in." Katie worked quickly at her controls. The station's big mechanical arms reached out and grabbed the damaged Zephyrian ship. Slowly, carefully, they pulled it into the docking bay. "The ship is secure," Katie said. "But Lisa, their life support is almost gone. Whoever is in there doesn't have much time." Lisa was already moving. "Danny, get your medical kit. Katie, grab your tools. If we're doing this, we're doing it right." They ran to the docking bay. The Zephyrian ship was even bigger up close. It was black metal with red markings that looked like claw marks. Smoke was still coming from several holes in its side. "The airlock is opening," Katie said, reading her scanner. Lisa felt her heart beating fast. She had never seen a Zephyrian before. The stories said they were monsters, 7 feet tall with armor-like skin and claws that could cut through metal. The airlock door opened with a hiss. At first, Lisa couldn't see anything in the dark opening. Then something moved. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Lisa heard Danny make a small sound of fear behind her. The Zephyrian was everything the stories said and more. She was tall, much taller than any human. Her skin looked like it was made of dark green and black armor. Her arms were long and powerful, ending in hands with claws that gleamed in the station's lights. Her face was sharp and angular, with eyes that glowed like golden fire. But what surprised Lisa most was not how scary the Zephyrian looked. It was how hurt she looked. The warrior's armor was cracked and bleeding a dark liquid. She was holding her side, and Lisa could see pain in those glowing eyes. The Zephyrian took one step forward, then another. Then she fell. Lisa ran forward without thinking. She caught the huge warrior before she hit the ground. The Zephyrian was heavy, but Lisa held on. "Danny, get over here!" Lisa shouted. Danny ran, over with his medical scanner. His hands were shaking, but he started checking the Zephyrian's injuries. "She's hurt bad," he said. "Internal bleeding, broken bones, and she's been without proper life support for hours." The Zephyrian's eyes opened. She looked up at Lisa with confusion. "You caught me," she said weakly. "Why did you catch me?" "Because you were falling," Lisa said simply. The warrior stared at her for a long moment. Then her eyes closed again. "We need to get her to the medical bay," Danny said. "Now!" Lisa looked down at the unconscious Zephyrian in her arms. This creature could probably kill her with one hand when she was healthy. Her people had destroyed entire worlds. Every instinct told Lisa to be afraid, but all she felt was concern for someone who was hurt and far from home. "Katie, help me carry her," Lisa said. Together, they lifted the wounded warrior and carried her toward the medical bay. As they walked, Lisa wondered what she had just started, but she knew one thing for sure. She had made the right choice. Behind them, the damaged Zephyrian ship sat quietly in the docking bay, like a sleeping dragon waiting to wake up. Kethara woke up feeling something she had never experienced before: peace. She had slept through the entire night without nightmares. Jake was sitting in a chair nearby, reading quietly and keeping watch. "How do you feel?" he asked when he saw her awake. "Different," she said honestly. "Better." Outside the window, she could see the Zephyrian warship still waiting. Today would decide everything. "Are you ready for this?" Jake asked. Kethara sat up and looked at her reflection in the dark window. She looked the same on the outside: tall, armored skin, golden eyes, deadly claws. But inside, everything had changed. "Yes," she said. "I'm ready." They walked to the control room together. Lisa and her crew were already there, watching the Zephyrian ships on their screens. "They've been quiet all night," Lisa reported. "But our sensors show they're still armed and ready." "Open a channel," Kethara said. "It's time to finish this." The screen flickered to life, showing Thorax Bridge. The war commander looked tired, like he hadn't slept either. "I have made my decision," Cathara said, before anyone else could speak. Speak, Thorak said. Cathara stood straight and proud, but not in the rigid way of a Zephyrian warrior. She stood like someone who had found her true strength. I am no longer Cathara Voss of the Zephyrian Empire, she said clearly. I choose to stay with the humans as their friend and ally. Thorak's face hardened. Then you choose death. No warrior abandons the Empire and lives. I'm not abandoning anything, Cathara said. I'm choosing to grow beyond what I was taught to be. You choose weakness, Thorak snarled. Do I? Cathara asked. Thorak, answer me honestly. In all our years of war, what have we gained? Thorak paused. We have gained territory, resources, fear from our enemies. And what have we lost? Cathara pressed. Thorak was quiet for a moment. Behind him, other warriors were listening intently. We have lost many warriors, Thorak admitted. We have lost friends, Cathara said. We have lost the ability to trust. We have lost the chance to be anything other than weapons. These things are necessary sacrifices, Thorak said, but his voice lacked its usual conviction. Are they? Jake stepped forward. War Commander, may I ask you something? Thorak glared at him but nodded. When did you last feel happy? Jake asked. The question seemed to catch Thorak off guard. Happy? Warriors don't seek happiness. But when did you last feel it? Jake persisted gently. Not proud of a victory, not satisfied with conquest, just happy. Thorak stared at him for a long time. The bridge was completely silent. I don't remember, Thorak said finally. Cathara laughed yesterday, Jake said. Really laughed, not the harsh sound warriors make after battle. She laughed because Katie told her a joke about quantum mechanics. Cathara felt her cheeks warm. It was true. She had laughed, and it had felt wonderful. That means nothing, Thorak said, but he sounded uncertain. It means everything, Cathara said. Thorak, I have been stronger these past 2 weeks than I ever was as a warrior, not because I can fight better, but because I don't have to fight alone anymore. Explain, Thorak demanded. When I was hurt, they healed me. When I was lost, they helped me find my way. When I was afraid, they stayed with me. Cathara looked at her human friends. That is strength, Thorak. Not the strength to endure pain alone, but the strength to share it with others. One of the younger warriors on Thorak's bridge stepped forward. War Commander, permission to speak. Thorak looked surprised but nodded. I have nightmares too, the young warrior said quietly. Every night since the Battle of Rigel Station, I thought I was weak. Another warrior spoke up. I dream of my unit mate who died saving me. I hear his voice calling for help. More voices joined them. One by one, Zephyrian warriors began admitting to pain they had carried in silence for years. Thorak looked around his bridge with shock. You are all affected by these memories? Yes, War Commander, several voices said at once. Danny stepped forward on the human side of the screen. What you're describing sounds like trauma. It's a normal response to terrible experiences. The good news is, it can be treated. Treated how? Thorak asked. By talking about it. By accepting help. By understanding that needing support doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Danny paused. Well, not human exactly, but you know what I mean. Thorak looked at Cathara again. And these humans? They helped you with this? They showed me that I didn't have to carry my pain alone, Cathara said. They showed me that admitting weakness is actually a form of courage. This goes against everything we were taught, Thorak said. Maybe what we were taught was wrong, Cathara said boldly. The bridge fell silent again. In Zephyrian culture, questioning the old ways was the ultimate heresy. But then Thorak did something that shocked everyone. He sat down heavily in his command chair and put his head in his hands. I'm tired, he said quietly. I'm so tired of fighting and death and pretending that none of it affects me. Lisa stepped forward. War Commander, you and your warriors are welcome to visit our station. Not as conquerors, but as guests. Maybe we can show you what we've shown Cathara. Thorak looked up at her. You would trust us? After all the worlds we've destroyed? We trusted her, Jake said, nodding toward Cathara. And look how that turned out. Thorak was quiet for a long time. Then he stood up and removed his commander's insignia, the mark of his rank and authority. I would like to learn about this healing you speak of, he said. The other warriors on his bridge began removing their rank insignia too. One by one, they chose to be more than just weapons. Over the following weeks, the Zephyrian warriors learned what Cathara had learned. They discovered that strength could exist without cruelty, that leadership could exist without fear, and that admitting pain was the first step toward healing it. Some chose to return to their empire to share what they had learned. Others chose to stay and help build something new, a partnership between species based on understanding rather than conquest. Cathara became the first Zephyrian ambassador to humanity. But more importantly, she became the first of her people, to understand that true strength wasn't about being feared. It was about being trusted. Months later, Jake found Cathara in the observation deck again. But this time, she wasn't there because of nightmares. She was there because she loved watching the stars with her friends. Difficult day? She asked, seeing the tiredness in Jake's eyes. A bit, Jake admitted, sitting down beside her. The new Centaurian trade negotiations are complicated. Want to talk about it? Cathara asked. Jake smiled and began explaining his concerns. Cathara listened patiently, offering advice when asked and comfort when needed. When Jake finished talking, Cathara put a gentle hand on his shoulder. You don't have to carry this alone, she said softly. Jake looked at her with gratitude. Thank you. As they sat together watching the stars, Cathara reflected on how much had changed. She had come to this station as a dying warrior, convinced that strength meant enduring pain alone. Now she understood that the greatest strength of all was creating a space where others didn't have to be alone with their pain. She had learned this from humans who saw a wounded enemy and chose to heal rather than hurt. They had pulled back the covers of their hearts and shown her that sanctuary wasn't a place. It was a choice. The choice to see others not as threats or tools, but as people worthy of care. The choice to build bridges instead of walls. The choice to offer comfort instead of conquest. And in making that choice, they had shown the galaxy that there was a different way to be strong. Outside the observation deck windows, human and Zephyrian ships flew together on joint missions of exploration and aid. Two species that had once been enemies were now partners in building a better future. It had all started with one simple act of kindness, pulling back the covers and offering sanctuary to someone who needed it most. That, Cathara had learned, was the most powerful force in the universe. The alarm that woke everyone up was different from the usual station alerts. This one was deeper, more urgent. Cathara knew what it meant before anyone told her. Her people had come. She ran to the control room where Lisa and her crew were staring at the big screen. In the distance, 5 Zephyrian warships were approaching. They were massive, dark, and built for destruction. "They're hailing us," Katie said, her voice tight with fear. "Put them through," Lisa said. The screen flickered and a face appeared that made Cathara's blood run cold. War Commander Thorak Vess, her former mentor and the hardest warrior she had ever known. His scarred face looked angry. "Human station!" Thorak's voice boomed through the speakers. "You hold a Zephyrian warrior. Return her immediately, or we will take her by force." Lisa looked at Cathara, then back at the screen. "War Commander, I am Lisa Harper. Cathara Voss came to us with a damaged ship. We helped her repair it. She is free to leave whenever she chooses." Thorak's golden eyes narrowed. "You lie, human. No warrior would stay willingly with weak creatures like you. You have corrupted her with your softness." Cathara stepped forward so Thorak could see her. "I am here by choice, War Commander." Thorak stared at her for a long moment. "Cathara, you look different." Cathara knew what he meant. She had been with the humans for 2 weeks now. She stood differently, spoke differently. The constant tension that all Zephyrian warriors carried was gone from her shoulders. "I am well, Thorak," she said. "You will return to your ship and come. Aboard my vessel immediately," Thorak commanded. "We will discuss your condition in private." Cathara felt her heart sink. She knew what Thorak meant by discussion. Any warrior who showed signs of weakness or corruption would be executed as an example to others. "I understand," Cathara said quietly. Jake stepped up beside her. "She's not going anywhere until she's ready." Thorak looked at Jake with contempt. "Human, you do not understand what you are dealing with. That warrior has been compromised. She is no longer fit to serve the Empire." "Maybe that's not such a bad thing," Jake said calmly. The other Zephyrian commanders on Thorak's bridge made angry sounds. No one spoke to their war commander like that and lived. "You dare insult the Zephyrian Empire?" Thorak snarled. "I'm not insulting anyone," Jake said. "I'm just saying that maybe there are better ways to live than constant war." Thorak's face twisted with rage. "You have 1 hour to return our warrior, or we will destroy your station and everyone on it." The screen went black. The control room was silent for a moment. Then Lisa began giving orders. "Katie, power up all defensive systems. Danny, get the emergency evacuation pods ready. Jake—" "No," Cathara interrupted. "This is my fault. I will go to them. They will not harm you if I surrender." "Like hell," Jake said firmly. "We're not giving you up to be executed." "You don't understand," Cathara said desperately. "Thorak is a war commander. He has killed entire populations for smaller insults than this. If you don't give me up, he will destroy this station and everyone on it." "Then we fight," Lisa said simply. Cathara stared at her. "Fight? You have 1 small station. They have 5 warships. It would be suicide." "Maybe," Lisa said, "but we don't abandon our friends." "Friends," Cathara repeated. The word still felt strange to her. Katie looked up from her console. "Commander, they're powering up their weapons." Cathara made her decision. "I have to go. I won't let you die for me." She started toward the door, but Jake caught her arm gently. "Wait," he said. "There might be another way." "What way?" Kethara asked. You said Zephyrian culture respects strength, right? Jake said. What if we show them a different kind of strength? Before Kethara could ask what he meant, Jake was already moving toward the communication controls. Open a channel to the Zephyrian fleet, he said to Katie. Jake, what are you doing? Lisa asked. Something probably stupid, Jake admitted, but maybe necessary. The screen flickered back to life. Thorak's angry face appeared again. Have you come to surrender the corrupted warrior? Thorak demanded. I've come to challenge your assumptions about strength, Jake said calmly. The Zephyrian bridge fell silent. Warriors didn't expect humans to challenge them. You think Kethara has been weakened by staying with us? Jake continued. But I think she's been strengthened. Strengthened? Thorak laughed harshly. She cries like a child. She speaks of feelings and friendship. These are weaknesses. Are they? Jake asked. Kethara told me about her last mission. How she lost her entire unit for a worthless piece of rock. She carried that pain alone for months, and it was eating her alive. Thorak's expression became dangerous. You know nothing of Warrior's pain. I know she was dying inside, Jake said, and I know that after 2 weeks with us, she's not dying anymore. She's healing. She's growing stronger. Impossible, Thorak said. Weakness cannot create strength. What if it's not weakness? Jake asked. What if admitting you're hurt and asking for help is actually the bravest thing you can do? Kethara watched this conversation with amazement. Jake was talking to a Zephyrian war commander like an equal. He wasn't afraid, wasn't trying to submit or threaten. He was just speaking the truth as he saw it. You speak nonsense, Thorak said, but he sounded less certain than before. Do I? Jake said. Kethara, tell him how you feel now compared to when you arrived. Kethara looked at Jake, then at the screen showing Thorak's scarred face. This was the moment of truth. She could lie, try to convince Thorak that she was still the same warrior. Or she could tell the truth and face whatever came next. I feel free, she said quietly. For the first time in my life, I don't have to pretend to be something I'm not. Thorak's eyes widened slightly. What are you not? I'm not just a weapon, Kethara said, her voice growing stronger. I'm not just a tool for the Empire to use and throw away. I'm a person with thoughts and feelings and dreams. Dreams are for the weak, Thorak said automatically, but his voice lacked conviction. Are they? Kethara asked. What do you dream of, Thorak, when you close your eyes at night? What do you see? For a moment, Thorak's hard expression cracked. Kethara saw something in his eyes that she had never seen before. Pain. Old, deep pain that had been buried under years of warrior discipline. I dream of... Thorak started, then stopped. It doesn't matter. Dreams are luxury for those who have earned peace. When will you have earned it? Jake asked gently. When will any of you have earned it? After you conquer the next planet? The next system? The next galaxy? Thorak was quiet for a long moment. Behind him, Kethara could see other Zephyrian warriors listening. Some of them looked thoughtful instead of angry. You offer her weakness disguised as strength, Thorak said finally. I offer her choice, Jake said. The choice to be more than just a warrior. The choice to heal instead of just endure. The choice to build instead of just destroy. And if she chooses to stay with you? Thorak asked. Then she stays, Jake said simply, as our friend and equal. Thorax stared at Jake for a long time. Then he looked at Kethara. "Is this what you choose?" he asked. Kethara felt everyone looking at her. Her own people, who had raised her to be a weapon, and the humans, who had shown her she could be something more. That night, as the two fleets faced each other in the darkness of space, Kethara couldn't sleep again. But this time, it wasn't because of nightmares. It was because of hope. She walked through the station halls and found herself outside Jake's quarters. Her hand hesitated at the door. In her culture, disturbing a leader's rest was a serious crime. But Jake wasn't a Zephyrian leader. And she was no longer just a Zephyrian warrior. She pressed the door chime softly. Jake answered quickly, still dressed. He had been awake too. "I'm scared," Kethara said quietly. It was the first time she had ever spoken those words. Jake looked at her with understanding. He didn't mock her fear or tell her to be strong. Instead, he did something that no one in her life had ever done. He stepped aside and pulled back the covers of his bed. "You don't have to be scared alone," he said simply. Kethara stared at him. This human was offering her something her own species had never given her, a safe place to be vulnerable. She stepped into his quarters, and for the first time in her life, she understood what sanctuary meant. Kethara couldn't sleep. She had been on the human station for a week now, and every night was the same. When she closed her eyes, the memories came. She saw her unit dying in the Battle of Kepler Station. She heard the screams of her warriors as enemy fire cut them down. She felt the weight of command as she ordered soldiers to their deaths. In Zephyrian culture, warriors didn't have nightmares. They had glorious memories of battle. But Kethara's memories felt heavy and dark, not glorious at all. She got up from her bed in the guest quarters and walked through the quiet station halls. The humans slept peacefully, trusting their friends to keep watch. Kethara had never known that kind of trust. She found herself in the observation deck, a large room with windows that looked out into space. The stars were beautiful here, far, from the war zones where she usually fought. Kethara pressed her clawed hand against the cool glass and tried to push the memories away. But they kept coming back, stronger each time. She heard footsteps behind her and turned quickly. Jake was standing in the doorway, wearing simple sleep clothes. His hair was messy from sleep, but his eyes were alert. Couldn't sleep either. He asked softly. Kethara nodded. She expected him to leave or ask her to go back to her room. Instead, he walked over and stood next to her at the window. "The stars are beautiful from here," Jake said. "Yes," Kethara agreed. "On my home world, we cannot see them clearly. Too much smoke from the war factories." Jake was quiet for a moment. "What's it like there? Your home world?" Kethara had described Zephyrian culture to the humans before, but always the proud parts. The strength, the honor, the mighty empire. She had never talked about the other parts. "It is hard," she said finally. "Every day is a test. Every moment, you must prove you are strong enough to survive." "That sounds exhausting," Jake said. "It is." The words came out before Kethara could stop them. She looked at Jake with surprise. She had never admitted weakness to anyone before. But Jake didn't look disgusted or disappointed. He just nodded with understanding. "I grew up on a military base," he said. "My father was a colonel. Everything was about discipline and strength. I understand a little of what you mean." Kethara stared at him. "But you are not like that now." "No," Jake said. I learned that there are different kinds of strength. The strength to be kind is harder than the strength to be cruel. Kethara felt something breaking inside her chest. The carefully built walls that had protected her for years were starting to crack. I had a unit, she said quietly. 37 of the finest warriors in the Empire. They followed me into battle for 3 years. Jake waited patiently for her to continue. We were sent to take a mining colony on the edge of nowhere. The mission was pointless. The colony had nothing we needed. But the War Council wanted to test our new weapons. Kethara's hands were shaking now. She pressed them against the window to stop the trembling. The colonists fought back harder than expected. My warriors started dying. One by one they fell. But I couldn't retreat. Retreating would mean I was weak. What happened? Jake asked gently. They all died, Kethara said, her voice breaking. All 37 of them, for a worthless rock in space. And I lived because I was strong enough to kill the last defender while my friends bled out around me. The tears came then. Kethara had never cried before, not once in her entire life. Zephyrian warriors didn't cry, but the tears came anyway, hot and painful down her face. She expected Jake to be disgusted by her weakness. Instead, she felt his hand gently touch her shoulder. I'm sorry, he said softly. That must have been terrible. I should be proud, Kethara said through her tears. I won the battle. I survived when they didn't. That makes me strong. No, Jake said firmly. That makes you hurt. And being hurt doesn't make you weak. It makes you someone who cared about your friends. Kethara looked at him through her tears. How can you say that? I failed them. I led them to die for nothing. You didn't choose the mission, Jake said. You didn't choose the war. You just tried to take care of your people in an impossible situation. But they trusted me, Kethara whispered. They followed me, and I got them killed. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he began to speak, his voice soft and sad. 2 years ago, I was commanding a rescue mission. A transport ship was breaking apart near a black hole. I had to choose between saving the crew or saving the passengers. I chose the passengers. Kethara looked at him with surprise. 12 of my crew died holding the ship together long enough for us to get everyone else out, Jake continued. I dream about them every night. I wonder if I made the right choice. You saved more lives, Kethara said. Yes, Jake said, but that doesn't make the guilt go away. It doesn't bring back the people who trusted me and died. Kethara realized that this human leader carried the same pain she did. But somehow, he still functioned. He still cared for others. He still chose kindness over cruelty. How do you bear it? She asked. By remembering that they died doing what they believed in, Jake said, and by trying to honor their memory by being worthy of their sacrifice. Kethara felt the tears starting again. My warriors believed in me, but I don't know if I was worthy of that belief. The fact that you question it means you probably were, Jake said. A truly unworthy leader wouldn't care. They stood together in comfortable silence, looking out at the stars. Kethara felt something she had never experienced before, the relief of sharing her burden with someone who understood. On my world, showing this weakness would mean death, she said finally. Good thing you're not on your world right now, Jake said with a small smile. Danny Martinez appeared in the doorway looking concerned. Is everything okay? I heard voices. Kethara quickly wiped her face, embarrassed to be seen crying. But Danny didn't seem shocked or disgusted. He looked worried. About her. "Are you all right?" Danny asked, walking over to them. "She's had some difficult memories," Jake explained gently. Danny nodded with understanding. "That happens sometimes when you're recovering from trauma. Your mind processes things when you're safe enough to let your guard down." "Trauma?" Cathara asked. "It's what we call the emotional wounds that come from terrible experiences," Danny explained. "Your body healed from your ship crash, but your mind is still healing from everything you've been through." Cathara stared at him. "You have words for this?" "Of course," Danny said. "Mental health is just as important as physical health. We have doctors who specialize in helping people heal from emotional pain." "My people don't believe in such things," Cathara said. "That doesn't mean they don't exist," Danny said kindly. "It just means your people haven't learned how to treat them yet." Katie Lewis joined them, drawn by the voices. Soon, all 4 humans were sitting with Cathara in the observation deck, talking quietly about pain and healing and the weight of memory. None of them treated her like she was broken or weak. They talked to her like she was someone worth helping, someone worth caring about. As the station's artificial dawn began to brighten the windows, Cathara realized something important. For the first time in her life, she wasn't alone with her pain. These strange, kind humans had done something no Zephyrian had ever done. They had seen her at her weakest moment and chosen to stay with her. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" Jake asked. "For not leaving me alone," Cathara said. Jake smiled. "That's what friends do." Friends. Cathara had never had friends before. She had had fellow warriors, subordinates, and enemies, but never friends. She looked around at the 4 humans who had spent their night comforting an alien warrior who could have killed them all. She was beginning to understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their courage. It was their ability to see others not as enemies or tools, but as people worth saving. Cathara woke up slowly. At first, she didn't know where she was. The last thing she remembered was her ship breaking apart around her and the strange human voices offering help. She opened her eyes and saw white walls and bright lights. The air smelled clean, not like the smoke and metal of her dying ship. She tried to sit up, but pain shot through her body like fire. "Easy there," a voice said. "Don't move too fast." Cathara turned her head and saw the human male who had been scanning her earlier. Danny, she remembered. He was sitting in a chair next to her bed, reading something on a small screen. "Where am I?" she asked. Her voice was rough and dry. "You're in our medical bay," Danny said, putting down his screen. "You've been unconscious for 2 days. How do you feel?" Cathara tried to think. 2 days? That was impossible. In Zephyrian culture, being unconscious meant being helpless. Helpless meant dead. Yet here she was, alive. "Why am I not dead?" she asked. Danny looked confused. "Why would you be dead? You were hurt, so we fixed you up." Cathara stared at him. This made no sense. She was a Zephyrian warrior, an enemy of almost every species in the galaxy. These humans should have let her die, or killed her themselves. "You healed me?" she asked. "Of course," Danny said like it was obvious. "You had internal bleeding, 3 broken ribs, and severe dehydration. It took some work, but our medical equipment is pretty good." Cathara looked down at herself. Her natural armor had been cleaned and polished. Bandages covered her wounds, but they were clean and white. She felt better than she had in months. My ship, she said suddenly. Is it? Katie fixed it, Danny said with a smile. Well, more than fixed it. She upgraded your engines and added some new systems. She was pretty excited about working on Zephyrian technology. This was too much. Kethara's mind couldn't understand what was happening. In her world, enemies were killed or enslaved. They were not healed and helped. I don't understand you humans, she said finally. Danny shrugged. Most people say that. Can I ask you something? Kethara nodded. What's it like being a warrior? I mean, the fighting and all that? The question surprised her. Most beings either feared Zephyrians or wanted to use them. No one had ever asked her what it was like. It is hard, she said after thinking. We fight from the time we can walk. We must always be strong, always be ready for battle. That sounds tiring, Danny said. It is, Kethara admitted. She had never said that out loud before. The door to the medical bay opened, and the human female commander walked in. Lisa Harper. Kethara tried to sit up straighter, but Lisa waved her hand. Don't get up, Lisa said. How are you feeling? I am confused, Kethara said honestly. Lisa pulled up another chair and sat down. About what? You saved my life. You fixed my ship. You ask me how I feel. Kethara's golden eyes stared at Lisa. I am your enemy. My people have destroyed human colonies. Why do you help me? Lisa thought for a moment. Because you needed help. It's that simple. But I am dangerous, Kethara said. She held up one of her clawed hands. I could kill you both right now. Danny looked at her claws with interest instead of fear. Could you really cut through metal with those? Yes, Kethara said, confused by his curiosity. That's amazing, Danny said. How does that work? Are they naturally sharp, or do you sharpen them? Kethara blinked. This human was not afraid of her weapons. He was interested in how they worked. They are natural, she said slowly. They grow sharp as we age. Incredible, Danny said, making notes on his screen. The biological adaptations of your species are fascinating. Lisa smiled. Danny loves learning about different species. You should hear him talk about Centaurian biology. Kethara felt something strange. These humans were talking to her like she was a person, not a weapon or a monster. It was nice. Over the next few days, more humans came to visit her. Katie Lewis came to tell her about the improvements she had made to the ship. She was so excited about the work that she barely noticed Kethara's size or claws. I upgraded your power core efficiency by 30%, Katie said happily. And I fixed that problem with your navigation system. You were flying with a broken sensor array. How did you even find your way through space? I am skilled at navigation, Kethara said. You must be, Katie said with respect. Flying a damaged ship through deep space takes real talent. No one had ever called Kethara talented before. Strong, yes. Fierce, yes. But never talented. The human who confused her most was Jake Sullivan. He was the station's captain, a leader like herself, but he was different from any leader she had known. Jake would sit with her in the evenings and just talk. He asked her about her homeworld, her culture, her thoughts on things. He listened to her answers like they mattered. What's it like having an empire? Jake asked one night. Lonely, Kethara said before she could stop herself. Jake nodded like he understood. Leadership can be isolating. You carry responsibility for so many lives. In my culture, leaders rule through fear, Kethara said. It is effective, but But it doesn't leave room for friendship, Jake finished. Cathara stared at him. How did this human understand something that she had barely understood herself? "Do you have friends?" she asked. Jake smiled. "Everyone on this station is my friend. We take care of each other." Cathara watched how the humans interacted over the following days. They worked together not because they feared their leaders, but because they cared about each other. When someone made a mistake, the others helped fix it instead of punishing them. It was a completely different way of living. "I must test something," Cathara said to Jake one afternoon. "Test what?" he asked. Cathara extended her claws fully. They gleamed like knives in the light. She moved her hand quickly toward Jake's arm, not to hurt him, but to see how he would react. Jake didn't flinch. He didn't call for help. He just watched her with calm, interested eyes. But Cathara moved a little too close. One of her claws accidentally scratched Jake's arm, drawing a thin line of blood. Cathara pulled back immediately, expecting anger, fear, or calls for guards. Instead, Jake looked at his arm with mild concern. "Oh, that's bleeding a bit," he said. He got up and found a small bandage. "Are you okay? You look worried." I hurt you," Cathara said, staring at the blood. "It was an accident," Jake said, putting the bandage on his arm. "I can see you didn't mean to do it." "But I hurt you," Cathara repeated. In her world, accidentally hurting a leader meant punishment or death. Jake sat back down and looked at her with kind eyes. "Cathara, accidents happen. I'm not angry with you. I'm more concerned that you seem upset about it." Cathara felt something she had never experienced before. This human was more worried about her feelings than his own injury. It was impossible, but it was happening. "Your species is very strange," she said quietly. Jake laughed. "So I've been told. But maybe strange isn't such a bad thing?" For the first time in her life, Cathara began to think he might be right.